Gaming through time.
Hi, I'm Steven. This is Erock. We're with Just Got Played, and we are gaming through time.
Yes, we are.
All right, so what does that mean? So we started way back at the beginning of time, essentially, and we've made 10 of these videos now, or this is the 10th one anyway. And we are just telling you our favorite game published each year and the highest rated game on the website BoardGameGeek that was published that year. So in this video, we're covering 2020 through 2024. If you missed any of those other 9 videos, look in the comments down below. I've got links to those videos, and go check those out. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we get started, Erock?
No, I'm excited. Let's get this rolling.
Yeah, let's get this rolling. All right. Well, let's start with your best game of 2020.
Best game of 2020. So I'm a little bit late on this one. I really didn't play this till 2021. And if you've watched a number of our videos, you may know that this was my game of 2021, which was actually made in 2020. So on this list, we're going to put it on the right year. And my pick is Dune Imperium. I love Dune Imperium. It's such a really good evolution of the deck building game. I mean, you start with things like Dominion and Ascension, and you work up a little bit to like Thunderstone, where you got a little bit more going on. Then you have like Trains, and Trains is, I think, the first one I can remember at least that actually had a board. But there wasn't a whole lot of interaction. Your cards just did that. And then you kind of go from that up to Clank. And now in Clank, you have a deck building and a board, and it influences the board, and you're trying to do these cool things with these cards. And it seems like 2020 was the year of the next natural evolution, and that included basically the Lost Ruins of Arnak and Dune Imperium. They came out separately, but they both evolved the genre just a little bit more. And out of those two, my favorite is Dune Imperium. I just feel like it's an incredibly strategic game. It's a game in which it is a deck builder, but you don't put a lot of cards in that deck. Maybe 1 or 2 a round, and you're lucky if the game goes 10 rounds. Because in this game, there's no point salad or any of that. It's the first person to get to 10 points is going to end the game. There might be a couple of points you can nab at the very end of the game, but basically, if you get to 10 points, you're probably going to win the game. And I like that about this game. It's nice to see that kind of mechanism come out where everything's really point salads. I've played a lot of games where it's 250 to 244. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice to win 11-9. That's awesome. Every little thing is so important. There's this interplay between the deck that you're building a little bit, not a ton, and the worker placement going on the board to the fights at the end of the round. It does a really good way of using the cards in multiple ways. Like, I can use it as a worker placement and get some things going that way. But at the end of the round, once I pass, everything on my cards still counts at the very bottom. Then I get to buy cards and maybe add to my fight this way. It just adds these different layers to this deck building worker placement game. And I think the interplay between the different factions is slightly asymmetrical. Like, I have one special power and one thing that does something special, but then you get the deck building in along with that, and before you know that, 4 or 5 rounds in, everybody's kind of playing different. And I just love how this game evolves. I like how the factions interact with each other. I really like everything about this game. That's my game of 2020.
Nice. I have not played it yet, but I've been pretty interested, right? I've seen it on the table and heard people talk about it. I'm like, I should play this. So yeah, you would not have to ask me twice to play that game with you.
Well, soon then.
Yeah. So, all right. My game for 2020 is High Rise. Do you know this one?
I've seen pictures and stuff, but no.
Yeah, so this is from Gloomhaven and Formal Ferret. And, so if you watched my top 100 games of all time video, you know that I really like the time track mechanism where you can jump ahead as far as you want, but then people behind you can go and go and go until they catch up with you. So this game has that, right? You could jump ahead to wherever you want, take whatever action you want to get into whatever section of the city that you want. And it even actually sort of incentivizes you extra to jump ahead because there are piers along the map that you jump across those piers and you get something when you jump across those. So if you're the first to jump across the pier, you get first choice of the resource there and you take it. And then, so there's sort of an incentive to jump out ahead. And I talked about jumping to a different section of the city because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to build these really tall buildings based on these blueprints. And the taller buildings, score more points and you want to have the tallest building. And the section of the city that you're in when you build is where you have to build that building. Except in this game, there are a lot of ways to gain corruption. So, for instance, you could decide, well, I want to build this building, but I'm not going to build it in the part of the city I'm in. I'm going to take corruption to build it. And in fact, the city center is not a place you can ever be attached to. So to build there, you have to take corruption, right? So I like this ability to, strategically take corruption, even though it can hurt your score or whatever. But it allows you to sort of break the rules a little bit. So, and I think the table presence of this game is awesome. I played this as a prototype back in the day, and it had like little stackable tiles, and you built up these buildings. And even after its release, he made like plastic floors that you could add together to make these big buildings, etc. But I love the just giant cardboard standees with the point values on them that came with the original Kickstarter version of the game. That was cheaper, and I think just makes better table presence. I mean, it looks like a cool city. So it's eye-catching game, fun to play. It can be a little long, but you don't have to. You can scale that back if you want, because you can play 2 rounds of the board instead of 3, right? So, anyway, it's just sort of a cutthroat, I'm going to build a bigger building than you game. And I'm there for that. I love it.
Well, it sounds good. I'll have to play.
Yeah. All right. So, do you know offhand what BoardGameGeek's number 1 game for 2020 is?
No, I don't.
Well, it's probably pretty obvious once I say it, because it's Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion.
Oh, of course, Jaws of the Lion.
Of course. Yeah, of course. So have you played Jaws of the Lion?
Yeah, we have. We kind of did it backwards. We played it after we played Gloomhaven, but it was still a lot of fun. And, I tell people all the time, if you're going to jump into Jaws of the Lion. It really brings you into the system and teaches you a lot as you go. Gloomhaven itself does not. It just drops you in the deep end and says, all right, start swimming. So if you're new to the whole thing, if you're intrigued by it, if you don't want to spend a whole lot of time trying to understand the rules and how the monsters move and all that, get Jaws of the Lion. It's fully compatible with Gloomhaven, so you can port the characters over and play it in the bigger campaign. It's a fantastic game. If I had played this first, it would probably be my number 1 instead of Gloomhaven.
Yeah. So would you recommend people play Jaws of the Lion over the digital implementation of Gloomhaven to sort of get into it?
Ooh, that's a good question, because currently there is no Jaws of the Lion digital version. Yeah, I think I would, actually, because even the digital version, although it's really smooth and the AI takes care of a lot of that stuff, you still don't really know why things are doing the things they do. So yeah, I'd say start with Jaws of the Lion on the table and play 10 missions and really get a feel for the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they took so long to do the digital implementation of Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, but when it came out in 2023, it was a big hit.
Yeah, that's true, but
Yeah.
I was already Gloomhaven at that point.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to 2021. What do you have for us?
My game for 2021. All right. If you years ago watched our plays of the month and kind of kept up with what we were doing, this is probably going to come as no surprise to anybody at all. But my game of 2021 is Ark Nova. I love Ark Nova. It's a game about building a zoo, but that's not everything going on there. It's way more layered and complex than that. And at the same time, I want to say simpler, but that's a lie. I'll say it's more complex. So I like more complex. I like the layers. I really like the action selection mechanism that goes on this, where you're like, you have these cards and it's always the same cards. You might flip them, but they're the same cards, and you kind of slide them down. And when they get closer to 5, the more powerful they get, and then they use them and they go back to the front. I just really like everything about this game. It's really addictive to me. It's a giant deck of cards, and you kind of do the best you can with what you get out of this giant deck of cards. And I absolutely love that whole philosophy of game. Very much like Race for the Galaxy. There's a big old deck of cards, but you're not going to get them all. So you just do the best you can with what you got. And I absolutely love it. Ark Nova.
Yeah, very popular game. When it was new, this raced up the BGG charts. I thought it was going to maybe make it all the way to number 1, but it
got close.
It topped out at number 3 before it got knocked down a few notches. But it is still BoardGameGeek's highest rated game from 2021. So
hey,
you're crossing over again with Ark Nova.
It's been a few years, but I finally got a crossover. There we go.
Yeah, it's interesting that a lot of people compare Ark Nova with Terraforming Mars because of the card play. And my pick for 2021 is Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition.
Okay.
Right? So
I feel like we're in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I really like Terraforming Mars. I really like Race for the Galaxy. So I've talked about this before, how I feel like Ares Expedition gives me the Terraforming Mars feeling in half the time. And I can teach it to new people, which I struggle to do with Race for the Galaxy. Right. So you've got the card play. You've got where you have the thing where you're deciding what phase you want to activate this turn and what benefit you want to get because you chose that, and only the subset that everybody chose activates. So that's an interesting meta that you get from Race for the Galaxy. And then you've got cards aren't as hard to get in Ares Expedition as they are to get in Terraforming Mars. So, that's nice. You get the cards and you have the tags and you build up your tableau and you activate these things. And, the board isn't as interesting because all you're doing is flipping ocean tiles and maxing out the oxygen and the temperature. But I don't mind sacrificing that extra complexity on the board for having a much shorter experience. Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition. And then, of course, they came out with some additions to it. So like if you liked milestones and awards, you could get those added on. And then if you wanted a 5th player, right? So I got the one to have the 5th player.
Indeed.
Right? Yeah, because that's important for my gaming group. And still didn't really lengthen the game either. So that's great. But I do have to say, when we first started about making this list, I had listed out all the games that were my picks for the year. And we started filming. And this is the only year where from when we started filming to we actually got to talking about that year, I changed my pick.
Really?
Yeah, because when we had started filming, I had not played Ares Expedition yet.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to give an honorable mention, shout out to the Crew Mission Deep Sea.
Okay, that's a good game.
I like the Crew Quest for Planet 9. I like the Crew Mission Deep Sea. I like the Crew Cyberpunk, that third one that came out later. And
all of them.
Yeah, all of them, right?
It's like Love Letter. Like every spawn is great.
Yeah. Cooperative trick-taking game. Like you had me at that. Okay, right? Like
exactly.
What is that? That's garbage. No, it's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. The first time I heard of that, I was like, that's the silliest thing I have ever heard of, cooperative trick-taking. And then you play it and you're like, that's fantastic. Yeah, how did nobody ever think of that?
Exactly, right. Nobody thought of it because it doesn't work. Oh, wait, yes, it does.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, all right. So let's move on to 2022. What have you got for us?
2022. Well, if you know me at all, this is probably no shock at all. But my pick for 2022 is Frosthaven. I love Frosthaven.
Yeah.
Can't help it. I love the Jaws of the Lion. I love the Gloomhaven. Frosthaven was just the natural evolution of this whole thing. And I really appreciate a lot of the changes that they made. Now, granted, it took a little extra longer to get to us, so barely made 2022. But I like that they took the accolades / criticisms from Gloomhaven and Jaws of the Lion to come up with a superior product that incorporated all the best aspects of both of these games. The most innovative as far as the gaming system is Jaws of the Lion has these books instead of these huge cardboard maps of everything. It has these books where you just open the book to the page of the adventure that you're doing. And they incorporated that in the Frosthaven. Thank you so much. That was at least half of the setup, and teardown was those big cardboard chunks of map and trying to put them together and then trying to fit them back into the box. Thank you. Thank you for doing something simpler. Thank you very much. And I just love the whole thing. You know, like I said, if you know me at all, this is no shock. This is just more of the same, refined as it were, and you get to build the town as you go. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, if you're going to add anything onto what you've already got going on, now you get to build a town too. So Frosthaven, I can't just say enough. These are like my top 3 games is like Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, Frosthaven.
Yeah. And you talked about how this just sneaked in at the end of the year, right? Just sneaked in for sale right there at the end of the holiday season. So I'm going to cheat a little bit because my game technically didn't really come out till 2023. If you look at BoardGameGeek, it's a 2023 game. Most Kickstarter backers got it in 2023, but I got my Kickstarter copy at the end of 2022 because I always get early copies of the Tiny Epic games. Indeed. And this is Tiny Epic Vikings.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, you know, in Tiny Epic Vikings, you're drafting these Viking leaders. And then, you know, you're playing them and you've got this area control thing going on the board, and you could be battling. And even, you know, when you win the battle, you get some points, but if you lose the battle, you get like Valhalla points. And, you know, so Tiny Epic Blood Rage. Tiny Epic Vikings. Yeah.
You're going to get in trouble.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I really like these Tiny Epic games. Some of them actually, I think they pack a little too much into the box, a little too much complexity and fiddliness or whatever. But I really felt like this hit the sweet spot of where I want to be with a Tiny Epic game. You know, it's sort of big, but even though it's in a tiny box, but it's not overly complex. And it's good price point, size, and all those other things that I care about too, right? But it came with an expansion. I have the expansion. I haven't even played it yet. I mean, I always get the Tiny Epic expansions because, you know, I'm just a completionist of the Tiny Epic series, I guess.
I understand.
But sometimes I don't even play them, right? Like, I'm just like, oh, I like the base game. Why am I going to throw more in there? I'm just going to play with this, right? So, yeah.
Plus,
anyway.
You know, you kind of hinted towards it, but at some point, you're not tiny anymore. It's just a label. It's not a description.
It's the description of the box, not the game, right? Yeah, because some of those Tiny Epic games are a table hog. This one's not that bad. It does actually have a fold-out board for the first time in the Tiny Epic series.
I wouldn't be surprised if these guys crack the code of the 4th dimension, so that the next game they come out with is going to be in a box this big, but it just keep pulling things out of
Tiny
it.
Epic TARDIS.
Yes,
it's bigger on the inside. Yeah,
awesome.
All right. So, you know, interestingly, I thought that the number one game from BoardGameGeek for 2022 was going to be Frosthaven, but it kept dueling back and forth with one game. And when I checked today, in the top spot was not Frosthaven, but was Return to Dark Tower.
Interesting.
And so that's got to be all nostalgia factor. Well, table presence probably and nostalgia factor, right? Some, you know, and I think people just over time have gotten over the whole, well, you got to have an app to play the game, you know? So I think more people are accepting of that. So they're more accepting of this game. And, you know, they had another, there were a limited set of copies in the beginning, and then now they've made more and more print runs, right? So it's getting more and more out there, and you know. Yeah.
Plus, it didn't help. I mean, it didn't hurt that it got a little cheaper. Like the more that they made, the cheaper it got. So
yeah,
that helped.
Yeah,
to get
it got into broader distribution, cheaper, and people were willing to play app-based games. But you know, and I mean, it's sort of silly. The tower spinning around, spitting out cubes. I mean, you don't need that, but it's table presence and. You know, well, I say you didn't need that because you don't need it for the game, but you absolutely needed a tower to do Return to Dark Tower. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you couldn't make a Dark Tower game without a tower in the middle. And, you know, it's fun, right? It's not.
It's a fun game.
It's interesting because, again, it's a co-op take on an old classic, which was competitive. I mean, you can play this competitive too if you want, but it's designed primarily as a co-op, and it works well with my family. So that's one reason why I like it a lot.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun playing this. I'm just Frosthaven all the way, man. I don't want to pick sides in this war, but if you force me to, I will shoot Return to Dark Tower in the face. I'm sorry.
Wait, which is a bigger box, Return to Dark Tower or Frosthaven?
Ooh, it's tight. It depends. Are you going to put all the boxes for the first version of Return to Dark Tower, the minis and the expansion?
Oh yeah,
and
the
everything?
Dark Horde. Yeah, right.
Yeah, probably that if you include all of that.
Yeah, probably. All right.
I'm not carrying both of them at the same time. I'll just tell you that.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, are you ready to move on to 2023?
Let's do 2023. Now we're getting close to the present time.
All right, man. You do it. What do you got?
Okay. If you've been watching this series since the very beginning, you may remember there was a good span of time where I liked party games. They were my best game of the year for a while. It's been a long time since I talked to them. Well, talked to them. Talked about them, as it were. I just really fell in love with the whole medium to heavy Euro. But out of absolutely nowhere, in 2023, came the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of that worked. If you know anything of what I'm talking about, you obviously know I'm talking about Happy Salmon Legacy. I mean, come on. Happy Salmon Legacy? This is the giant fish that it came in? I mean, come on. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And yet, it works. It's so much fun.
You knew when the Exploding Kittens people bought Happy Salmon away from, North Star or whatever, that they had some plan for it, right?
Something was going to happen.
This was the plan.
Right. Who knew, right? It's just amazing how much fun this is. And I mean, and if you've ever played Happy Salmon at all, a whole game is about 5 minutes. So you can play the whole Legacy game in about 2 hours. It's amazing. It usually takes us 3 months to play a Legacy game if we're trying. In 2 hours, it's fantastic. Plus, now they came out with the recharge pack, so you can just load it up and do it again.
Yeah. You know what? I probably shouldn't do this, but, I make whichever one of my kids loses, because I would never lose. But I always make the loser clean up, because nobody wants to do that.
Right. Exactly. But I highly recommend it. It's the first party game that's been on my list in a long time, so that ought to tell you how good it is.
Yeah, and it's cheap too, right?
And it's cheap, right?
Just get a copy. Why not? All right. So for 2023, I'm going back to the Terraforming Mars well, because finally, after many, many delays, right there, sneaking in again at the end of the year, we got Terraforming Mars, the dice game.
Right. Barely made this one at the end of the year. They love those Christmas sales, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, this game was in development forever because they were developing this game, and then it got delayed. I'm not exactly sure what the delay was, but then it was butting up against the release of Ares Expedition, so they delayed it again. And, who knows, with COVID and stuff, maybe it got delayed further. I don't know. But finally, they got this game out, and it's just fun. So again, I get the Terraforming Mars experience. This, I think, originally was their original attempt to streamline the Terraforming Mars experience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You've got the same thing. You're trying to fill up ocean spaces on the board, not just flipping tiles, but filling up the ocean spaces. You're trying to max out oxygen. You're trying to max out temperature. And when you do that, the game's over. But all the different cards you get, they give you dice. And there's lots of different types of dice. So you've got green dice, or, they combine the titanium and steel into one metal die. And you roll the dice, and that gives you the resources that you have for that turn. And you don't carry any of those over either, right? Like, you have to use them at some point in your turn. And you can't, there's a little bit of a balancing mechanism, because when everybody rolls the dice, like, you go around, taking a turn using resources like you do in Terraforming Mars. But as soon as somebody is like out of stuff and can't do anything, everybody else gets one turn. So if you had 1 million more resources than them, it doesn't matter. You're gonna have enough turns to use them anyway. So, there's just a lot of fun, right? Like, it's kind of like how I like Roll for the Galaxy. I like Race for the Galaxy, right? I like Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition as a light Terraforming Mars experience. I like Terraforming Mars, the dice game, as a light Terraforming Mars experience. I know some people probably are not going to like the randomness of the dice, but I don't know. You got randomness in the cards anyway, so it doesn't bother me.
I like a good dice chucker. It's nice,
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's just that I'm old school or there's just something in human nature that loves throwing dice. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. Just dice, right? Like, I'm happy.
Right? It's just fun throwing dice. Yes.
And I've said this before, like, there's different ways you can use dice. And I like the whole, sort of dice building aspect. Like, here's my collection of dice. Then I roll them. I see what I got and I figure out what I'm going to do with that. I like that more than just like, roll dice. Did I win?
Right.
So that can be fun too, right? But I'm just saying I prefer the other. And this has got the other, right? Like, roll your dice and then do what you can with that stuff. All right. So do you have a guess what BoardGameGeek's number one for 2023 is?
I would have guessed it was your pick. I would guess that was the one.
Oh, no. You have forgotten about the Seventh Citadel.
Oh,
the sequel
you're right.
to the Seventh Continent.
I did forget about that.
Yeah, right. That is a big deal. Like, did you ever play the Seventh Continent?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I didn't.
We played it a number of times. It's a thing. It's not like you're like, well, we got about an hour and a half. What do you want to play? No, it's a thing. And you can actually even save it and pick it up and keep going. It's a big old thing going on.
I mean,
I could probably say thing one or two more times, but yeah, it's a process. It's an experience. Yes, we did play.
Yeah, I mean, it is a dark medieval RPG dungeon crawl thing going on, right? And as long as you can get into the story, trying to resolve that curse or whatever, and as long as you have the time to spend to figure out what the resolution is,
exactly.
But I would say that Seventh Citadel is more an iteration on the Seventh Continent than like a whole new bam. But still, right? Seventh Continent was popular. Seventh Citadel is popular. I get it, right? And these kind of games that have this sort of grandiose production and that they attract a following, right? I've said this before about legacy games too. Like, I feel like when people are rating games, there are people who don't like legacy games and they won't play it and they won't rate it. And I feel the same thing about these, types of, campaign or RPG or whatever games, right? The Seventh Citadel. People who aren't going to like this game aren't going to play this game and aren't going to rate this game.
And aren't going to rate it, right?
So, you've got a small targeted audience that really likes this stuff and rates it highly. And I think that does pretty well. I mean, you still need a lot of people to rate it to get a high ranking on BGG. But I just feel like this hit that spot. Yeah.
There's a lot that's attractive about this kind of game. We kind of fell off this in later, maybe the last 5 or 6 years or so. But there's this whole idea in your head of there is an entire huge map inside this box. And you don't ever actually see that. You only see the little pieces. But in your head, there's this huge map. And I'm just discovering little bits of it as you go. And that's attractive. It's fun to do that.
Yeah. All right. So 2023 BGG number one, the Seventh Citadel. I want to do another shout out here because there's a game that I really like, and I really like as a family game. And again, it's the nostalgia factor, and again, it's Restoration Games. But this 2023 is when they finally put out their reprint of Crossbows and Catapults.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, so I'm not going to talk a lot about that. But if you want to get down on the floor with your kids and throw little foam rocks at castles and knock stuff over, then like this is where it's at, man.
And just like all of their productions, the production value is insane.
Yeah,
it's really
whether
well
you
done.
get the retail version or the crowdfunded version, right? It doesn't matter. They're both really good.
Yep, agreed.
All right, so let's move on to 2024, and I will start with 2024 because I think
this is it. This is the last year till like 5 years down the road.
Yeah, right. Like I think you might cross over with BoardGameGeek on this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and go first, right? So I talked before about how people had gotten over app-assisted games, right?
Right.
So, but then I wondered, how are they going to feel when Meta announced that they were going to get into board gaming, but it was VR assisted board games, right? I was like, are people going to do that? I mean, you put out a game that requires a Facebook account, right? Like, are people going to buy that board game? And, some people didn't, but I did. And I think it's awesome that this crossover effort from Meta, when they made Azul Burj Khalifa, right? Where you're collecting the Azul tiles and you are building in VR the Burj Khalifa with the tiles you collect from the board game. Like, this is crazy.
I'll tell you that. Yeah.
With Azul, they put out an Azul every year. So you had to have a new Azul. What was this one going to be? Like, is it just going to be another, now they're diamonds instead of squares or something, right. I don't know. And they're like, no, it's building floors in VR. The tallest building in the world. I'm like, mind blown. What? So
it's definitely something.
Yeah. And
I don't think I've played it enough to really form an opinion, because I'm still in the what is this stage of the whole thing,
Yeah. Yeah. This could be the new thing, right? It could be. I don't know. We'll see.
It could be.
Unless the Luddites come and smash all our technology infrastructure.
You're right. People laughed at apps and, eventually that was nothing. So I guess this is the future VR.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. Azul Burj Khalifa. And now I want to see if you're going to cross over here. So what is your pick for 2024?
Well, I don't know what the BGG pick is, but for this was a slam dunk. This was probably the easiest year in all of the years we've done for me to pick, because if you're like me, you were just blown away, mind blown, surprised. I fainted. Tiffany had to pick me up off the floor. Could you believe Up Front finally shipped?
Oh, I forgot. No wonder you're not crossing over with BoardGameGeek. I forgot that this counts as a 2024.
Finally. It started funded, I think, in 1977 is when they had the original Kickstarter page. But yes, finally, unbelievable. It came out of nowhere. They didn't even say it was coming. Nobody even knew. And there it was in all of its glory. For those of you that do not know, Upfront's a game that came out, I think, in 83. And I'm pretty sure we had talked about it as being the BGG pick of that year in one of our earlier videos. But there was a huge Kickstarter fiasco with this game. And basically the company went dead. And then apparently, behind the scenes, they picked all the pieces back up together. They actually made the game, actually sent it out, and it's fantastic. The artwork is fantastic. The game itself was tweaked just enough off of the original to be just a sublime tactical combat experience, all expressed in cards. It's really hard to describe this game if you've never played it. But you basically have a number of soldiers. You split them up into groups as you see fit. And then they each have like their own terrain, and they have their own movement and range. And they don't actually move like on a map. It's all kind of abstracted out. But you can even do things like maneuver around somebody and really get some bonuses for the flanking attack. And all of this was really accomplished in these card games, which made it so popular and such a huge disappointment when it never shipped in the first place. So it just kind of reversed the whole thing. It was like it did a 180 3 times. I was going to say, a 360, but then you're just back where you were. So it was like it did 3 180s. That's like how big this was. It's unbelievable. I'm still blown away that this finally came out. Up Front, my game of the year.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I forgot about that. Also, now that I'm thinking about what the BoardGameGeek #1 is, I'm thinking maybe it's Tiffany that likes this game more than you, because I'm surprised you forgot that it's obvious what the BGG #1 is. Because it's Wingspan Triassic. Remember
yes.
Wingspan, right? Like,
That's
how popular that is. And so finally they went all the way back to the roots of birds with the original flying dinosaurs, which debuted in the Triassic period, right?
Yeah, I forgot this was 24. You're right. And yes, you're also right. Tiffany loves this game. She can't get enough of it.
Yeah. And
I have to basically beg to play something else.
Yeah, again, great Stonemaier production. I love the individual art on all the cards. I like that it's a standalone game rather than just another bird pack for Wingspan. It just wouldn't fit.
That would just be weird
dinosaurs.
Anyway, right?
Yeah, right.
Right. I'm going to play a robin. I'm going to play a pterodactyl. What?
Yeah. So again, I've never been the biggest fan of the Wingspan series, but I would say that I think Wingspan Triassic is the best take on it. You keep iterating on a game, you're just going to keep improving it, right? And my kids are just going to be more likely to like dinosaur art than they're going to be to like bird art. So
Absolutely.
that's an easier sell.
I mean, you can say a million times birds basically are dinosaurs, but that really doesn't drive the interest up, like an actual dinosaur does.
And I know some people don't like the added player interaction you have here. Yeah, with the ability to mess other people up because dinosaurs have to fight. I guess I don't know, but so I can understand why some people might like the original classic Wingspan experience better, but this one, just hits a lot more notes for me.
Yeah, I imagine it does. I'm actually surprised that Tiffany loves it as much because she's not generally into the interactive, and by interactive I mean mess with each other things. She's always been more of the Care Bear mean player, meaning, well, you can get in my way, just don't destroy my stuff. But I don't know. She just really fell in love with all the mechanisms of this one. And it's a really well-produced game. It's a well-designed game. I can't blame her. I have fun playing.
Yeah. Good. Well, she's right up there with the rest of BoardGameGeek, who think that's the number one game for 2024, Wingspan Triassic. All right. Well, that is it. We have finished 2020 through 2024. We have done 10 of these videos. Now it is time for you to come tell us, what did we mess up? What games are we missing? There is a link to our Discord channel down below. Come to our Discord channel, and we will be happy to discuss that with you there. Or you can put a comment here in the YouTube video, right? And in fact, if you would like the YouTube video, if you enjoyed this, that would help us out. Always helps to have the YouTube interaction. And, you can subscribe. Make sure you see that our next series that's coming up. We have another Gaming Through series coming up after this one. So hope you'll subscribe and check that out when we debut that.
We'll eventually make a box set it'll be Gaming Through everything.
Nice, a box set. We'll put it out on Blu-ray.
Yes, sir.
In 4K HD.
Do you remember that? Oh, man.
Yeah, right. All right, cool. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. I'm Steven. That's Erock, and we're from Just Got Played, and we were Gaming Through Time.
It's been a lot of fun, y'all. Thanks for coming along with us on this journey.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Bye.